three sisters sold their mother's house and divided the inheritance, leaving the old woman to die in a nursing home. But when they returned a year later, they were surprised. Laura believed in love and family. But when her world fell apart, she had to find the strength to carry on for her daughters. Now, an unexpected legacy from the past promises to change everything. Secrets will be revealed, and true feelings will come to light. Laura always believed in love and family. From a young age, she dreamed of a happy life alongside a loving husband and children who would brighten her days. Her dreams seemed to come true when she met Carlos, a charming and attentive man. They married in a small ceremony, and soon their daughters, Alice, Clara, and Beatriz, were born. However, Laura's life took an unexpected turn when Carlos began to grow distant. He started coming home late, making up excuses for business trips, and becoming increasingly absent. Worried, Laura tried to keep the family together, but her efforts were in vain. One day, Carlos simply didn't return home. He left behind a letter full of empty apologies and promises of financial support that would never come true. Carlos had left with a new partner, abandoning Laura and their three young daughters. The shock and pain were immense, but Laura knew she had to be strong for her girls. She took on the responsibility of raising her daughters alone. She worked tirelessly, often holding 2 or 3 jobs, to ensure that Alice, Clara, and Beatriz had everything they needed. Laura sacrificed her own dreams and desires to provide a decent life for her daughters. She raised them with love and discipline, always doing her best to hide her own pain and disillusionment. The years passed and the girls grew up. Alice, the eldest, became an ambitious and determined woman, always seeking success in her career, but with an emotional void she could never fill. Clara, the middle child, was the most pragmatic and rational of the three, always looking for quick solutions to any problem, but she developed a cynical view of love and family. Beatriz, the youngest, stood out for her beauty and charm, using them to get what she wanted, but her superficiality hid a deep insecurity. Despite Laura's efforts, the daughters developed a deep resentment towards their mother. They blamed her for their father's departure and the hardships they faced in their childhood. To them, Laura was nothing more than a constant reminder of their own frustrations. Laura, on the other hand, felt increasingly exhausted. The relentless work and lack of emotional support took their toll. She aged quickly but never stopped loving her daughters unconditionally. However, her heart could no longer bear so much suffering. One day, Laura suffered a stroke. The incident deeply shook the family, but instead of bringing them together, it revealed the true nature of the daughters. Alice, Clara, and Beatriz saw their mother's illness as an opportunity to rid themselves of the responsibility of caring for her. With empty promises of care and love, they convinced Laura to transfer all her assets to them, claiming it was to facilitate the management of resources and ensure the best treatment for her. However, as soon as the documents were signed, the daughters quickly placed their mother in a nursing home, sold the family house, and divided the inheritance among themselves. Laura, now alone and frail, saw her world crumble. The house where she had raised her daughters, filled with memories, was sold. The promises of care and affection turned out to be cruel lies. She was left to die in a strange place, surrounded by strangers. Meanwhile, the sisters went on with their lives, each trying to deal with their own problems and ambitions. The bond they had with their mother deteriorated completely, and they rarely visited her. A year passed. Laura, always resilient, managed to adapt to her new reality, but the pain of abandonment still haunted her. Then, an unexpected twist changed everything. She received a call from her sister, who had emigrated to the United States many years ago. The news was surprising. The sister had married a wealthy man and now, deceased, had left a considerable inheritance for Laura. This new information awakened something in the daughters. They, who cared little for their mother, saw in the inheritance a chance to recover what they considered their rightful share. What they didn't know was that this opportunity would bring hidden truths to light and test the limits of their family bonds. The news of the possible inheritance stirred the sisters. Alice was the first to receive the call from Laura, who was visibly emotional when talking about her sister and what this could mean for them. Clara and Beatriz were quickly informed, and the three gathered to discuss the next steps. "We need to investigate this thoroughly," said Clara, always the most rational. We can't act without being sure of the value and conditions of the inheritance. Alice agreed but was more concerned about what this would mean for her own life. Recently, she had faced financial problems, and this inheritance seemed to be the perfect solution. Beatrice, on the other hand, saw the opportunity as a chance to improve her lifestyle, which had always been luxurious but was now struggling due to her impulsive choices. The sisters decided to visit Laura at the nursing home to get more information. It was the first time in months that they had gathered to see her. Laura, visibly weakened but with a renewed sparkle in her eyes, welcomed them with a smile. "Mom, tell us more about this inheritance," Alice asked, trying to sound interested and caring. Laura explained that her sister, who had emigrated many years ago, had married a very wealthy man. They had lived happily for many years, but unfortunately, both had passed away, leaving behind a substantial inheritance. In her will, the sister had left everything to Laura, her only living relative. "We need to travel to the United States to sort this out," Clara said, analyzing the documents Laura had given them. "But we all need to be together for this." Laura agreed but imposed one condition. She wanted her daughters to treat her with more love and respect. She was tired of being seen only as a burden. The sisters promised to do their best to improve their relationship with their mother, but internally, they were more focused on the money they could gain. The trip to the United States was planned, and the three sisters began working to obtain the necessary documents and permits. During this process, Laura observed her daughters with a mix of hope and distrust. She wanted to believe that she would finally receive the affection and respect she had always desired, but she couldn't ignore the history of selfishness and insensitivity they had shown over the years. The trip to the United States was marked by tension. Alice, Clara, and Beatrice constantly argued about how to divide the money and how each should use her share. Laura, silent, observed everything, waiting for the right moment to reveal her true feelings. When they arrived in the United States, the sisters were greeted by a lawyer who explained the entire process. They needed to sign some documents and resolve bureaucratic issues before accessing the inheritance. During this phase, Laura insisted on being present at all meetings, demanding to be treated with respect and dignity. Alice, Clara, and Beatrice began to realize that winning back their mother's trust wouldn't be as easy as they had imagined. Laura, now more determined and aware of her worth, was not willing to be treated as she had been before. She wanted to see a true effort from her daughters to change their attitudes and show genuine affection. Gradually, the sisters began to understand the importance of their actions and words. They needed to work harder to regain their mother's trust, not just because of the inheritance, but to redeem the mistakes of the past. The relationship between them and Laura began to improve, but there was still a long way to go. The following weeks were a test of patience and determination for the sisters. With each meeting with the lawyer, new details about the inheritance emerged, increasing their anxiety and expectation. Laura, however, remained firm in her demands. She wanted to see real changes in her daughter's attitudes before taking any further steps. Alice, Clara, and Beatrice began to spend more time with Laura, trying to understand her needs and desires. They took her on outings, had lunch together, and even spent nights talking about the past. These interactions began to soften the edges of a strained relationship. "I remember when we were little, Mom used to take us to the park," said Beatrice, nostalgically, during one of these outings. "I always loved those afternoons." Laura smiled, but her gaze was distant. She knew that these moments of affection were part of a conscious effort by her daughters to regain her trust, but there was a growing genuineness that she couldn't ignore. Meanwhile, the sisters continued to resolve the bureaucratic issues surrounding the inheritance. They needed to present a series of documents and prove their family connection to Laura's deceased sister. This process was complicated and exhausting, but the sisters united around a common goal. During these weeks, Laura began to share more of her memories and feelings. She talked about the sacrifices she had made over the years, her hopes and frustrations, and the pain of seeing her daughters emotionally distance themselves from her. "You were always my greatest joy and, at the same time, my greatest pain," said Laura one evening, as the four of them sat in the garden of the nursing home. "I never wanted you to go through what I did, but I did the best I could." The sisters were silent, reflecting on their mother's words. They realized how unfair they had been to Laura, blaming her for things beyond her control. "Mom, we are so sorry for everything," said Clara, her voice choked with emotion. "We want to make things right now." Laura nodded, but she held firm to her demands. She wanted to see a true commitment from her daughters before trusting them again. She demanded the return of her savings and the purchase of a new house, where she could live with dignity and comfort. Alice, Clara, and Beatrice knew this would be a challenge, but they were determined to prove their love and respect for their mother. They began to search for a suitable house and gather the resources needed to return Laura's savings. During this process, they faced several difficulties, from financial problems to internal conflicts. "We need to do this for Mom," insisted Alice, the most determined of the three. "She deserves much more than what we've given her so far." Meanwhile, Laura watched her daughters with a mix of hope and caution. She wanted to believe the change was real, but she knew that only time would prove their sincerity. The sisters, in turn, began to realize that this journey was about more than just reclaiming an inheritance. It was an opportunity to redeem their mistakes and rebuild their family bonds. Finally, after weeks of searching, the sisters found a house that seemed perfect for Laura. It was a cozy home, with a spacious garden and located in a quiet neighborhood. They united to gather the necessary money and return Laura's savings, fulfilling the promise they had made. On moving day, Laura was visibly emotional. She couldn't believe that after so much suffering, she was finally getting the chance to start anew. The sisters worked hard to make the new home comfortable and welcoming, decorating the house with family photos and objects that brought back good memories. The relationship between Laura and her daughters improved significantly during this period. They began to value their time together more and to support each other. The inheritance, which initially seemed to be the main focus, became secondary to the strengthening of family bonds. However, the truth about the inheritance had not yet been fully revealed. Laura knew it was time to tell her daughters everything, but she wanted to be sure they were truly committed to change. One quiet evening, after a family dinner, Laura decided that the time was right. "Girls, I need to talk to you about something important," Laura began, looking each of them in the eyes. "There's something you need to know about my sister's inheritance." Alice, Clara, and Beatrice exchanged nervous glances. "What happened, Mom?" Beatrice asked, anxious. Laura took a deep breath before continuing. "This whole inheritance story was a hoax. I made it up to test you. I wanted to see if you really cared about me or if you were just after the money." The silence that followed was crushing. The sisters were in shock, unable to believe what they were hearing. "What do you mean, Mom?" Clara was the first to break the silence, her voice trembling. "You lied to us?" "I didn't do it out of malice," Laura explained, tears in her eyes. "I did it because I wanted to see if you were capable of change, if you really cared about me. I was tired of being seen only as a burden." The sisters remained silent, processing the revelation. The initial anger gave way to deep introspection. They realized that the journey they had been on wasn't about money, but about recovering the love and respect they had lost over the years. "Mom, we are truly sorry for everything," Alice said, approaching Laura and holding her hands. "We love you, and we want to do things right, regardless of the money." Clara and Beatrice agreed, joining Alice and Laura in a collective hug. Their mother's revelation had exposed their true intentions, but it also gave them the chance to prove that love and family were more important than any inheritance. In the months that followed Laura's revelation, the sisters continued to show their commitment to improving their relationship with their mother. They began to visit her regularly, spend more time together, and support her in everything she needed. Laura, in turn, began to trust her daughters again, seeing in their actions a sincerity she hadn't seen in a long time. The new house became a true home for Laura, full of life and joy. The sisters took turns spending nights with her, cooking family meals, and even organizing small parties and gatherings with friends and neighbors. The house, once a symbol of division and pain, now represented unity and love. One day, while they were gathered in the garden, Laura decided it was time for another revelation. "Girls, I have something important to say," she began, smiling. I don't want you to think I did all this just to test you. I wanted to give you the chance to redeem the mistakes of the past and build something new." Alice, Clara, and Beatrice listened attentively, feeling the weight of their mother's words. "I know we've made a lot of mistakes, Mom," said Clara, her voice full of emotion. "But we're willing to do everything we can to regain your trust and love." Laura nodded, moved. "I believe in you, and I want you to know that this inheritance, even though it was a hoax, brought us something much more valuable. It gave us the opportunity to start over, to rediscover love and the importance of family." The sisters agreed, feeling a renewed determination to continue working on their relationship with their mother. They realized that the true wealth was in the bonds they were rebuilding, the memories they were creating, and the love that was being reborn. Time passed, and the relationship between Laura and her daughters continued to flourish. They faced challenges together, celebrated achievements, and, above all, learned to value each other's presence. Laura, now happier and more at peace, watched her daughters become more compassionate and conscious women. The house they bought for Laura became a gathering place for the family, a place where memories were created and where love prevailed. The sisters, once so distant and selfish, now supported each other and cared for their mother with the love and dedication she had always deserved. Laura, for her part, found the peace she had long sought. She knew that despite the mistakes of the past, she had achieved something much greater, the union of her family. The lessons learned throughout this journey were profound and transformative, both for her and for her daughters. At the end of a year, as they looked back, Alice, Clara, and Beatrice realized that the true inheritance lay in the relationships they had rebuilt and the love they had rediscovered. Laura, proud of her daughters, knew that she had finally found what she had always desired, a united and loving family. And so, amidst laughter and shared memories, the family found a new beginning, a new hope, proving that, despite adversities, love and family will always prevail.